All right, let's talk about a term that is everywhere these days: cloud computing. So, what is it really? Is it an actual cloud floating up in the sky? And when you save something to the cloud, where does it actually go? Stick around, because by the end of this, you're gonna get it. You'll know not just what the cloud is, but why it's the engine behind almost everything you do online. Let's get into it.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we're going to take a quick look at the world before the cloud, just to see what problems we were trying to solve. Then we'll get into what cloud computing actually is and the main ways it's offered. After that, we'll pull back the curtain and see where the cloud physically lives. And finally, we'll connect all the dots and see why it's so important to our digital lives today.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock a bit. Before the cloud existed, if you wanted to launch something like a website or a new app, well, you were in for a really expensive, really slow, and kind of painful process.
And this slide really nails the difference. Back in the day, you had to physically go out and buy these huge, powerful servers. That meant a massive upfront cost, what the finance folks call capital expenditure, or CapEx. You also had to guess, literally guess, how much power you'd need. And if you guessed wrong and your website suddenly got popular, too bad, you were down. Getting a new server and setting it up could take weeks, even months. The cloud just completely flips that on its head. Instead of buying, you rent. That huge upfront cost? Gone. It becomes a simple, pay-as-you-go operational expense, or OpEx. Need more power for a flash sale? You get it in seconds. Sale's over, you scale right back down. It is an absolute game changer. So, this new way of doing things, this flexible, on-demand model, that is the cloud computing solution. It wasn't just a tiny improvement, it was a completely different way to think about how we use computers. So what's the official definition? Well, it's actually incredibly simple. At its core, cloud computing is just about being able to get to your stuff, your data, your apps, your processing power, over the internet. Instead of a file living right here on your computer's hard drive, it lives on some powerful computer in a data center somewhere, and you can access it from your phone, your laptop, anywhere you have an internet connection. It's that simple, but also that powerful.
Now, for something to be considered true cloud, it really has to check these 5 boxes. On-demand self-service just means you can fire up a new server yourself right now without having to call a salesperson. Broad network access means you can get to it from anywhere on any device. Resource pooling is the provider's magic trick. They use the same physical hardware to serve lots of different customers. Rapid elasticity is that incredible ability to scale up and down in an instant that we just talked about. And measured service is the key to the whole financial model. You only pay for exactly what you use, kind of like your utility bill.
Okay, so we know what the cloud is and what makes it tick. But how is it actually delivered to us? Well, you can think of it as coming in 3 main flavors, or maybe like different sets of building blocks you can choose from.
This table breaks it down perfectly. Let's start at the bottom with infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. This is like leasing an empty plot of land. You get the most basic building blocks, the virtual computers, the storage, but you're responsible for building the house, installing the operating system and all your software. Then you've got platform as a service, or PaaS. This is like renting a house that's already been built. The provider handles the foundation, the walls, the plumbing, all that underlying server stuff. And you just focus on the fun part, your application code, the furniture, and the decorations. And finally, there's software as a service, or SaaS. This is what most of us use every single day. This is like renting a fully furnished apartment where all the utilities are included. You just show up and use it. Think Google Docs. You don't manage anything except your own documents. Which brings us to the big mystery question. If it's not a literal fluffy cloud, where is all this stuff? Well, the truth is, the cloud is very real. It's a massive planet-spanning network of actual physical buildings filled with computers. Let's start from the 50,000-foot view. The cloud is a truly global system. We're talking about a web of infrastructure that stretches across the entire planet. The big players, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, have built this incredible network so that it's fast and reliable no matter where you or your customers are in the world. Okay, now let's zoom in a little bit from that global map to the next level down, a region. A region is just a specific geographic area on the map, like the east coast of the US or a country like Ireland. And the key thing here is that these regions are completely separate from each other. This is really important because it lets you place your apps and data closer to your users for speed or to keep it within a certain country to meet legal requirements. And if we zoom in one more time, we get to the absolute core building block of the cloud. the availability zone, or AZ for short. Inside every single region, there are at least 2 or 3 of these zones. And a zone is basically just a huge data center, or a few of them clustered together with its own power, its own cooling, its own networking, all totally independent. They're physically separated, sometimes by miles. And that separation is the secret sauce to the cloud's reliability.
So let's put it all together. This whole system, global, down to region, down to zone, why is it set up this way? Well, it's all for 2 main reasons. First, to prevent failures. Because you have multiple isolated zones in a region, if one entire data center has a problem, your application can just keep running from another one without missing a beat. And second, speed. By having regions all over the world, you can serve your customers from a data center that's physically close to them, which makes everything way faster. It's a really brilliant system for building one giant, reliable global computer.
So we've covered the what and the how. So let's wrap up with the most important part, the why. Why should you care? Why has this cloud model completely taken over the entire world of technology?
Well, because the scale is just mind-boggling. I mean, just look at this market share. It's dominated by a few massive companies. Amazon Web Services, or AWS, basically invented this market, and they're still the clear leader, with almost a third of the entire pie. Of course, Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud are huge players in this race, too. And you got to realize, these companies aren't just renting out servers. They are building the literal foundation for our entire digital economy.
And what's running on this global computer? Pretty much everything you use every day. That Netflix show you binged last night, that was streamed to you from AWS servers. All the incredible advances in AI and machine learning, that's happening on the cloud. The online store that can handle millions of shoppers on Black Friday? The cloud. Even just simple things like backing up your photos from your phone, yep, that's the cloud too.
Okay, one last really critical point to understand is how security works. It's a partnership, right? It's called the shared responsibility model. The cloud provider, like Amazon, is responsible for the security of the cloud. That means the physical security of the data centers, the hardware, the networking. But you, as the customer, are responsible for security in the cloud. That means you control who has access, you encrypt your own data, you set up your firewalls. Think of it like this. The provider builds a secure apartment building with a doorman, but you're still responsible for locking your own apartment door. And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for the future. As more and more of our digital lives, our data, our processing power moves off of our own devices and into these giant shared global data centers, as the cloud truly becomes the world's computer, what does that mean for the supercomputers we all carry around in our pockets? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.